Angel Reese, though. What I found most interesting about this list is where ESPN ranks their face of the league. Unfortunately for Angel Reese, the polish seems to be melting off the turd. ESPN has tried to convince us that Angel Reese is the face of the WNBA. Not only is the matriarch of Me-Bounds the face of the league, according to the media, Angel Reese is the most dominant basketball player in the world.
Angel Reese had a week that she would very much like to forget, and the internet has absolutely no intention of letting her do that. In the span of a few days, she managed to get rejected by 2 different fan bases in 2 different cities in 2 completely different ways, and the combination of those rejections tells a story that is considerably more revealing than either one does on its own. Chicago watched her come back to the building where she used to play, get blocked into a viral moment by the player the Sky chose to replace her with, and responded with the specific energy of a crowd that has already moved on and is doing just fine. Then Atlanta, the city that was supposed to represent the fresh start, the redemption arc, the new chapter where everything was finally going to click into place, could not produce enough interested humans to fill a building that holds 3,000 people for her home debut. The ones who did show up watched Kiki Iriafen block her 3 times, while a Washington team built around rookies and second-year players walked out with an 11-point victory that nobody in that building seemed particularly shocked by. Reese had spent months telling every available platform that she was the it girl of women's basketball, the player who moves culture, drives attention, and changes the economic reality of whatever franchise is lucky enough to have her. 2 empty buildings and a week of getting blocked answered that claim with a directness that no response or reframe can fully address. No city rushed to defend her, no fan base mobilized to prove the doubters wrong. Both arenas simply reflected the market's honest assessment of the product being offered. Welcome to Hoopzonic, where we tell you exactly what the numbers and the empty seats are saying, regardless of how inconvenient the truth turns out to be.
The chance to talk about Angel Reese, Atlanta Dream debut. Of course, we covered it, but I didn't make a video. You know, it's a lot of videos I didn't get a chance to make because I've been busy. But yeah, we here. So make sure y'all tap that like button, hype the video, share it, all the good things, man. My takeaways were Angel Reese fit right in. She's exactly what the Atlanta Dream needed.
The setup for the Chicago return could not have been more perfectly constructed for Angel Reese to deliver a defining moment. She had spent the entire offseason on every podcast, every platform, and every interview circuit, making it unmistakably clear that she felt Chicago had never properly appreciated what she brought to the franchise, and that Atlanta was going to be the environment where her true value would finally be recognized and rewarded. She floated the idea of scoring 50 points against her former team in her return game. Not as a casual throwaway comment, as an actual stated ambition that she allowed to circulate publicly and attach itself to the narrative surrounding the matchup. 50 points against a Chicago Sky roster that was already missing Skylar Diggins-Smith, De'Arica Hamby, and Azura Stevens before the opening tip. The conditions for delivering on that noise were about as favorable as they were ever going to get. A short-handed opponent, a personal score to settle. A national audience that had been primed by weeks of off-season commentary to watch this specific game with specific expectations about what Reese was going to do in it. Every element of the situation was pointing toward the kind of performance that generates the highlight packages and the social media moments that she had been promising her audience was coming. The stage was fully set, the audience was ready, the opponent was vulnerable. All that remained was for the performance to match the billing.
In case you're wondering, Angel Reese, still not good from the field. 3 for 7, 10 points. I mean, good God Almighty. Not good. By the way, Mystics defeated the Dream. Defeated the Dream. It was ugly. No doubt about it. Speaking of ugly, let's just address this. When does lame-ass Atlanta Dream fix the lighting and change the court color?
Before the game even started, Reese made a decision that told observers something important about her relationship with the moment she had spent months building toward. She skipped the pre-game media availability entirely. This was not a player who had been quiet through the offseason. She had been one of the loudest voices in professional basketball from the moment the previous season ended. Podcasts, social media, magazine features, brand content. She had been everywhere, and she had been vocal about nearly everything, including her feelings about Chicago, her excitement about Atlanta, and her specific intentions for this particular game. And then a microphone appeared, in a context that actually mattered, in a professional setting where her words would be measured against what followed on the court, and she was nowhere to be found. The decision was not entirely surprising, given that she had previously acknowledged on a podcast that she would rather accept a fine than face the press in situations where she felt her words were being used against her. But the timing of this specific absence, the night she had promised a statement performance against the team she felt had wronged her, made the disappearance from the media room feel like a preview of what was coming on the floor. She walked into her old building, said nothing publicly, and left the game to do the talking. The game had a great deal to say, and none of it sounded like the revenge narrative she had been constructing since the offseason began.
It's not rocket science to see that since her arrival and the rest of that 2024 class, the WNBA has skyrocketed.
Finally! We have a WNBA player willing to admit that Caitlin Clark is the reason for the elevation of pretend basketball into the mainstream. Finally, we have a WNBA player willing to admit Caitlin Clark is the reason that they are no longer making minimum wage.
What happened when the game actually started was the specific kind of performance that makes every piece of off-season noise feel heavier in retrospect. She missed layups. Not difficult contested shots in traffic, not pull-up jumpers under defensive pressure with a hand in her face. Layups, the most fundamental conversion in the sport. The shot that players make at every level, from youth basketball through the professional ranks, because it requires proximity to the basket and a basic mechanical execution that professionals are expected to deliver automatically, regardless of circumstances. Fans watching the game and reviewing the clips afterward began pointing out a specific mechanical pattern in how Reese releases layups, launching from her hip rather than going up through the shot with the vertical force and extension that creates reliable conversion at the rim. Once the observation was made and the clips were slowed down and examined, it became the kind of thing that fundamentally changes how you watch her attack the basket. It reframes the missed layups not as random misfortune or a bad night, but as a consistent mechanical pattern that has been present throughout her professional career and that has never been adequately corrected. At the professional level, where every defender is long and every angle is contested, and every conversion opportunity requires precise execution, a layup release pattern that is fundamentally compromised is not a minor technical detail. It is a structural problem that shows up in the efficiency numbers, in the free throw numbers, and on nights like this one, in the moments that the arena and the internet both remember.
Okay? Even, of course, Angel Reese, she was giving Lauren Betts the business. Okay, but Angel Reese, I see her frustration in this game. I really want Angel Reese to stop trying to shoot through defenders. She kept eating up the floor, and it was making me so upset because I'm like, I don't want her to risk any injury. She gets the ball blocked from her, from whoever, and she just boom. You just see Angel Reese just continue just repeatedly just fall on the ground, fall on her knees, fall on her lower back. Okay, that's her tailbone.
Then Kamilla Cardoso entered the picture, and what she did to Reese in that paint became the defining image of the entire night. Cardoso is the center the Chicago Sky chose to build their front court around after moving on from Reese. The implicit statement in that organizational decision had been floating in the background of the matchup narrative since the rosters were announced. On this night, that implicit statement became explicit, and it became a viral clip that traveled across every basketball platform within hours of the game ending. Reese drives, goes up with the ball, and Cardoso steps in and takes it. Not scrambles for it, not gets lucky with a fingertip deflection, takes it. With the calm authority of a player who read the move before it was fully executed and simply arrived at the destination first. The rejection was clean and complete, and it communicated something beyond the blocked shot itself. It communicated that the player Chicago chose to build around in the post-Reese era was ready to handle exactly the kind of challenge Reese had promised to bring to that building. The clip spread because it felt like a visual summary of the entire situation, compressed into a single basketball play. The fans in that building were not conflicted about it. They were not processing complicated feelings about a player who had represented their team for 2 seasons. They were rooting against her clearly and without reservation, and the building carried that energy from tip-off to the final buzzer. Atlanta lost 87-78 to a Sky team that was resting the majority of its real rotation. That result does not support any version of the revenge narrative that had been promoted for months.
The Atlanta Dream ended up besting the Chicago Sky, and I want to talk about Angel Reese's performance. Overall, in the box score, it looks like she did pretty good. 8.7 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, but she went 2 for 7 field goal percentage, shooting 28% from the field and 4 of 8 from the free throw, 50% on free throws. All right. Angel Reese is still doing Angel Reese things as she missed wide open shots, things that she should have made, she didn't make.
After the game ended, Reese sat at the post-game podium and laughed at the Chicago Sky. She laughed at the organization while sitting on the losing side of the box score with a 29% field goal percentage next to her name. The clip of that press conference circulated more widely than any play she made during the actual game, which is a specific kind of irony that speaks to the gap between her performance and her personality as public-facing entities. The fans online did not respond to the laughter with anger or with the kind of emotional investment that suggests they feel threatened by the narrative she was pushing. They laughed back. Not with her, but at the same situation she was trying to spin into something flattering for herself. She then flew to Atlanta, carrying the expectation that a home crowd and a fresh start would reset the story and provide the moment that Chicago had refused to give her. Gateway Center Arena in College Park, Georgia, holds 3,000 people. 3,000. That is not a large venue by professional sports standards. It is not a building that requires a significant mobilization of fan interest to appear full and energized and supportive of a home team. It is the kind of intimate arena where even modest ticket demand produces a visible and credible atmosphere. For Angel Reese's home debut as an Atlanta Dream player, a meaningful portion of those 3,000 seats sat empty. The cameras captured it clearly and without ambiguity. The building that was supposed to represent everything Chicago was not offered its own honest assessment of the interest level her presence generated in her new market.
That can control the paint, Angel Reese going to do that. Angel Reese did look nervous though. She did look a little bit timid. It was kind of emotional being back in Chicago. She got a lot of love, by the way. If there's any narratives out there that Chicago don't love Angel, it's definitely not true, because the city of Chicago was still cheering for her. They gave her a standing ovation, and I think they showed a tribute. They gave her a tribute, if I'm not mistaken. I think they could have said that for the regular season, but.
The empty seats at Gateway Center deserve a specific examination because of what they reveal about the claims that have defined Reese's public identity as a professional basketball player. She has not been modest about what she believes she brings to a franchise and to a market. Moving culture, selling tickets, putting bodies in seats, creating the kind of commercial energy around a team that translates into revenue and visibility, and the broader ecosystem of growth that professional sports organizations are trying to build. These were not casual observations she made once and moved past. They were central planks of her public platform, repeated across 2 years of media appearances, with a consistency that suggested genuine belief in their accuracy. Gateway Center Arena holds 3,000 people, and it was not full for her home debut. The Washington Mystics arrived without Shakira Austin, their veteran center, which meant Atlanta was hosting a visiting team leaning heavily on players in their first and second professional seasons. A full-strength home team against a depleted opponent in a building that needs to move fewer than 3,000 tickets to appear sold out is the most favorable commercial scenario a professional player can be handed. The market looked at that scenario and responded with empty chairs. Meanwhile, the contrast sitting directly next to this reality refuses to be ignored. Indiana Fever games sell out. Road games sell out because Caitlin Clark is on the visiting roster, and fans in opposing markets buy tickets specifically to watch her play against their team. That is what drawing power actually looks like, when it is real and when it is attached to a product that delivers on what it promises. Clark does not discuss her ability to sell tickets as a personal attribute. The markets simply confirm it every single time without requiring any promotional assistance.
She got all kinds of ball on Angel Reese, but that wasn't even the worst one. Angel ended up getting all up in her feelings here. Oh, she gets mad. Oh, yeah, you got the shit blocked out of you. I mean, come on. Angel's mad she got her shot blocked. Yeah.
The Atlanta situation did not arrive without context, and anyone suggesting it represents an unexpected development has not been paying attention to the documented history that preceded it. Chicago ran this specific experiment twice and published the results in the win-loss column with complete transparency. The Sky finished 13-27 in Reese's rookie season. They followed that with a 10-34 record in year 2. Worse record, same star, same promotional investment, same noise, same absence from the playoffs. Her individual statistics continued to accumulate across both seasons, while the team's record moved in the opposite direction, creating the specific pattern where the personal numbers and the winning numbers exist in completely separate universes that never interact in the way that franchise-level impact is supposed to produce. Fans are not unsophisticated. They watch the records. They notice when a player's presence does not change the outcome for the team built around her presence. They draw conclusions from 2 full seasons of evidence, and those conclusions follow the player when she changes markets, because the track record travels with her. When Atlanta fans looked at their options for the home opener on May 3rd, they already had access to Chicago's 2-season dataset. They did not need to conduct their own experiment from scratch because Chicago had already done it, and the results were publicly available and completely unambiguous. An 11-point loss at home to Washington's developmental roster in front of a building that could not fill 3,000 seats is not a fluke or an anomaly or a bad night that deserves to be contextualized away. It is the continuation of a pattern that started in Chicago 2 years ago and that has been completing its sentence ever since. Hoopsonic will keep tracking where this goes. Because the data always finishes what the narrative tries to leave open.